Welcome to Talking to Teachers, or for short, T-Cubed. I'm Tanish Rastogi alongside Joshua Zeisloft. In this podcast, we will introduce you to different teachers and hopefully get to know them better as people on the way. We believe that behind every great teacher is an even greater individual. Thank you for coming. You're our first guest, Ms. Gearhart. So, how many years of experience do you have as a teacher in general? Like, not just at the high school, but in total?
23 years.
Wow. And how many of them are at
20.
the high school? 20?
I've been here 20 years, yeah.
Wow.
20th year.
Yeah. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I know, I'm an old fogey.
So you are the chemistry teacher here. You taught us AP chemistry.
Yeah.
And so I had a really nice time in your class. And I've always wanted to ask, like, all my teachers, like, what was the path you took to end up where you are?
Definitely never dreamed of being a high school teacher in any way, shape, or form. My mom was a middle school teacher. My dad was a coal mine engineer, and my stepfather was a teacher. And they discouraged us from following the path of education. So that just was kind of always off the plate. And I just loved science. So I knew in some way, shape, or form I wanted to be a scientist. And then was recruited by a chemistry professor. And so that kind of like, oh, well, why don't I give chemistry a try? Because I really did enjoy biophysics and chemistry equally.
Yeah.
But then as I got to study it deeper and deeper, I love the blend of the theory and the math, particularly with inorganic. But as I was approaching my junior year in college, at that point when I got my chem degree, really to become a research scientist, you needed to not only get a doctorate, but a postdoctorate. So I was looking at another 9 to 11 years of schooling. And I was very lucky in college to do summer research experiences. And both of my research experiences at Penn State and then at Duke involved working with equipment that would break constantly. And I just was missing this interaction with people and just really kind of just self-evaluated, like, I don't know. And met my husband, and we were getting serious and talking about marriage, and just thought, well, you know what, maybe I need to find another thing that I can do with my chem degree, or just take a break for a little bit. And so gave teaching a try, and just so loved interacting with teenagers. Just found that age to be just so special. And kind of thought, okay, just for now, what if I'm not a research scientist, what if I'm helping people to get there?
Yeah.
You know, but then here I am 23 years later. So I definitely at times thought like, wait, wasn't this like just a momentary kind of thing?
Yeah.
But then we had kids, and then it's okay, but I'm enjoying my job, and I have kids, and this teaching allows me to be off in the summers with them and so on. So so definitely was not the plan initially at all. And so just as an aside, I'm so excited now that with a 4-year chem degree, there are so many paths you can take. So no longer are you can enter the research field. You can, so that definitely has opened some, so that's different for those studying chemistry today.
Yeah. When you first got into the classroom versus now, how have you changed?
I thought at first I was just like the percenter of knowledge, and now the joy of my job is like the conversation, like that we have, like not a conversation with every one of the students, but I feel like whenever we're having a lesson, I am conversing with each of you. And then when I ask you a question or something else, then I know we're having the verbal back and forth, but that's the joy for me. So if anything, I found that just how do I best connect?
With each student individually?
I try.
Yeah.
I really try. Like at first I was all about, okay, I have to have all my notes perfect and everything else. And now it's, am I looking every student in the eye, trying to ask every student?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, maybe it's become, because I've gotten better with my content, that I don't know. But I think before I was just so worried about the information, and now it's more the relationship with it,
Right. Yeah.
With a student.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still being teacher and student.
Yeah.
But that's what I hope. And I know it's not in lab every day and like hands-on, but as much hands-on, but as we can with the information we have to cover and everything else. But that's my joy that I get from it. And so I think maybe that's just where I try to focus most.
Yeah.
If that answers your question.
So do you think that like after 23 years of teaching, do you have like plans of going into a different field of chemistry at all, or do you think
I definitely think about it, especially like as my kids are getting older.
Right. Yeah.
I'll definitely, and so periodically I'll just look.
Yeah.
What could I do with my degree, with my teaching experience? So sometimes I will, but right now, just I feel my job is also to provide for my family. So.
So in the classroom, what tools do you use to engage students with the material?
Sure. Well, I think I'm so lucky as a science teacher. So fortunate. Like even a student was having trouble with electrostatic attraction.
Yeah.
And so I can quickly grab a balloon and have him rub it against his hair, and then so.
Yeah.
Which I think in history, how do you like grab a bayonet or and so on. So I think I'm so fortunate because I feel like you need to imagine on the atomic level things with chemistry, but on the macroscopic, we can touch and see and experience. So definitely trying to stress the hands-on.
Yeah.
But then as far as tools, we have technology and, but I just haven't found good evidence or experience that says oh no, you can do chemistry on a computer.
Yeah.
That we don't need that back and forth or
so that's actually
hands-on.
What I was trying to get at is you don't see technology in the classroom as something
that will replace.
Not replace.
But enhance.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look how wonderful it is to have a digital thermometer, let alone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Definitely. And anything that how great is it that it graphs for you instead of having, if it's a time saver.
Yeah.
So, oh my goodness, absolutely. Tools that enhance, but I don't think doing a lab on a computer is the same as doing it and handling the burette. And
we do that sometimes in physics. We have these labs that we have to do online, with some college. They have an app that they put out, and I never feel like I learn as well as I do when I'm doing it hands-on with in a lab.
Yeah.
With partners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, do you talking about the technology stuff? Do you see that ever we've been doing a very similar structure of how we school kids for a really, really long time. Do you think that there's, especially with chemistry where it's so, like you were saying, hands-on, it might be easier in other classes to teach kids from just straight up online or, strictly computer based?
Absolutely.
Do you think that's, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So I know one of the questions is kind of how should education change?
Yeah.
I think we've been so in the box. And I think in the box really works for really driven students like you. But for example, my 14-year-old is not very interested in learning and just, he just hasn't found what
my passion about.
Yeah. What, and I'm not sure if it's just going to be that teacher that connects with him or whatever else or that certain subject that he gets to, and so I could see that he's definitely more of hands-on, but could it be more of a not so much content driven? So for example, the new high school that's being built. So what is an obstacle? The shifting ground. Okay, so could we take a problem and then from that problem teach? So I don't know, would it be plate tectonics or different soil composition or watershed or, and I'm just thinking of very environmental, but, to branch out from there. Or I think oh my gosh, the roads in Pennsylvania, really? Have we not gotten better?
Yeah.
Yes, we have, but it's just not cost effective.
Yeah.
So could that be okay, what should we build our roads out of? And then does that get chemistry and then I don't know. So I think that would be a great avenue, but yet for you guys that we need a foundational knowledge because you're going into engineering, you're going into that you need. So how do we meet all the students? Because I don't think we're meeting the students kind of like my son as well.
So are you saying integrating a bunch of different fields in one versus separating out like we have now where you go to a different chemistry class and then a physics class instead of bringing them together.
Mm-hmm.
That you're saying that's where education should go, is where we integrate them, or we should find a middle ground.
A middle ground. So a piece of that for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
or
think
like an
you're right.
option of that.
Yeah.
You know, or I know some schools develop like tracks. So if like you're thinking, which is hard because how can you really at 13
Yeah.
really know, because you haven't. I've seen kids that have just come alive when they get to chemistry, or maybe they come alive with biology, or they, you know, and so before that to ask to make that decision.
Yeah.
But is there more like that will prepare you more if you're going the medical field, or will prepare you more if you're going the business field, or, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, the one thing that I've found as a student that is the most helpful for my future and like what I want to do is the practical application stuff, like exactly what you're saying. Because in school, like outside of school, like we do the robotics stuff, and like there's very few times where I've said that I've actually done like, physical calculations of it. But the base knowledge of how to know that, like how to actually, the stuff works itself is fantastic to know. But then whenever you take that knowledge and then build it with something extremely practical, that's where you learn.
100%.
So how do we get more of that?
Yeah. That's the
one place school
question.
doesn't really get to.
No.
Yeah.
And
it's hard because all the students are different. It's not like if you are, deciding to do one particular task, not everyone's going to be involved in that. Like you have kids in your chemistry class who aren't planning on doing chemistry at all in the future, but might be interested in some form of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Oh no, absolutely.
We gotta find that.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I think too, all the high stakes testing.
Yeah, standardized testing.
Really, I was talking with a principal from Upper St. Clair, and they do a midterm and a final. So they really do a semester kind of summary test, not a midterm and then a final over the whole year.
It's like the college experience.
And then he asked of his teachers, the semester one test is a written test, but then the end of year is not. Because when they added up from third grade to when kids graduate, including SAT, including AP tests and so on, the kids are leaving taking like 140 standardized high stakes tests. And then when we're trying to, manage stress and that kind of thing, and is that practical?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to do it in college, but then it's over just a semester of knowledge.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something to revisit too.
That's actually a really good point. Like kids, high school kids, because you see them every day for like 23 years. So I bet I feel like now is like a peak for stress levels in students.
Absolutely.
And it's gotten worse, I feel like.
Absolutely.
So do you have an idea of like what's contributing to it? Like definitely standardized testing. Is there anything else there that you've seen? And
I know I'm an old fogey, and it will definitely sound like this when I say, but how can, social media not impact? I was watching a TED Talk that talked about, a lot of stress comes from the drive for perfectionism that's inside of us, depending upon your personality. But with social media, how outside false standards of perfection have been communicated to us. And I definitely know my 16-year-old daughter will say that, no, that I'm okay, Mom. But how could they not?
Yeah.
And so I can't help but just think that definitely, and I think definitely what I'm seeing a little bit, and I don't mean because it's just a reality of what we have to deal with, but I think, I had to cover a math class a couple weeks ago, and, when I was in school and the teacher wasn't there, you did the work, but then when you're done with the work, you talked with each other. It was time to finally talk, and it was like, woo! But when they were all done with their work, they were all on their phones.
Yeah.
And that's the opportunity you could talk with, And so I think, which again, not like saying, but just making an observation. And I think that's transferring to fulfillment from talking with someone and being able, that I think that's also impacting that we're just not getting filled up by social interaction with people. And that's a fake fill up.
Fake fulfillment, fake satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's...
I mean, it definitely all contributes.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, if somebody knew, they would have waved the magic wand and fixed it. But it's definitely up on the rise. And I think, too, hopefully the stigma is lessening
Yeah.
with mental health, and I think we're getting better at diagnosing earlier.
Mhm.
So I think definitely it was there when I was young, but
Mhm.
those were just the odd kids or the strange kids or the kids that just chose not to come to school or whatever else. So I think, which is a good thing that we're, but I think that's also
Opening up the circle. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What do you guys think?
I think you're 100% right. I think social media is really, I feel like it has a lot of positives because you can connect with people, and that's what we should do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it can get to the point where it consumes you entirely. Like, you just want to spend all your time on it. It becomes addictive in a way.
Mm-hmm.
I try to stay off of it, to be honest with you. Like, I only have a Snapchat. I don't use any other ones.
Yeah.
Just a balance, just to
Yeah.
find the balance, but studies have been shown about the dopamine that you get when you get a like or you get a,
Yeah.
and just, or studies that just having your phone on you distracts you,
Mm.
Yeah.
just to know, like, I could be checking or whatever else. So just, I don't know. I'm not sure if the pendulum is going to
Hopefully it does.
shift or,
I think people are starting to understand what the effects are of using it a lot.
mm-hmm.
I mean, we're
So I
we're
think-
seeing there's more than just like the social applications of it. Like there's like security risk with that stuff too. Like all the
Mhm.
stuff that's going on, or at least was going on, probably still is with like Facebook and stuff,
Yeah.
and like personal data and stuff. Like the fact that that stuff is online and you can't really control where that goes is kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
Because that can affect literally your entire life. And like you were saying, like it's great that like we can have that interaction and stuff, and like the internet in general, like you have access to literally all of human knowledge for all of time in a box that sits in your pocket. Like that is unheard of. That was like not even conceivable like 200 years ago, maybe even less than that.
Wasn't even conceivable 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
it's crazy to think that, but like the damage it's also done to society and the damage it's done to students specifically, like we've been talking about. I think it's you got to question if it's a good trade-off sometimes.
Right.
The crazy thing that my mom told me some story a couple weeks ago where she was I don't know where she was. She must have been out in public somewhere, but there was a kid with a book, and it was like a very young kid, must have been like 1 or 2 years old, and he was trying to turn the page by swiping it because they're so used to that. Like I can't even like we grew up like basically as this stuff was getting really popular, so like young childhood, we didn't really have it wasn't nearly as broad as it is now. But like there's kids who are like literally 1 or 2 years old who have like their own iPad and like they can just entertain themselves on that like all day, that's a developmental part. That's scary because that's when you need that.
I've seen like 5th graders walking around my neighborhood with like iPhone, which is really weird to me because I didn't use a phone until I was in 8th grade. So yeah, what do you think we should do about phones in high school? Do you think we should be allowed to use them during the day? Like as a teacher, what do you think?
I think they should be.
Just like in the middle school, you have to keep them in your backpack the entire day. You're not allowed. If any teacher sees you with it in class, they can immediately take it away.
I think that there should be one of those devices that cuts off any service. And I know it's like, but what about, we could turn it back on if we need to, if there's an emergency or something, like a bunch of people have access to it. But I think let's detach, let's just invest in the learning. 7:35 to 2:25, let's turn it off.
Let's do a digital detox.
Like I don't know. I think that might be something really, really good to try.
I bet it's frustrating for you as a teacher if you see.
Well, I let my AP students have.
Yeah.
But I collect the honors phones when they come in, and it's just habit. They just know, they go by. But that I don't have to worry about when they're taking a test, taking a picture of the test, keeping it as a cheat. Like they're not constantly, because that's usually where I find the most problem is with my 10th graders.
Yeah.
So I love that. And I didn't know if I'd get some pushback, and I did it as definitely when I explained the policy. I know Mrs. Kendrick does that and so on, that please see it as a gift, not as a punishment. We need to take a break.
Yeah.
I really want to invest in chemistry right now.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we've kind of talked a lot about what schools do wrong for students, I guess. What are some things that schools do right for kids?
We're so fortunate in our area because we really have some good schools that
100%,
and also my sister-in-law homeschools her kids, so that was always like, ooh, should I consider that
Mm.
for my own children and that kind of thing. And I think at the high school, in high schools in Pennsylvania, to teach chemistry, I have to be specialized in chemistry to teach. And so I wouldn't think I could do as good of a job. I would try my very, very best. But to teach bio, I wouldn't become like an expert in calculus or in, so I think you have people that are specialized in their subject.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that is a really good advantage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think disadvantages to improve on is we do kind of, try to fit this cookie cutter student. And so are we able to meet everyone really where they are?
Yeah. Yeah.
Standardized tests, and the state dictates things, and so could we really have the freedom to design programs and still get funded and so I wish there was a little more freedom for teachers to be able to really
do their job.
I mean, the end goal is to, whenever the students graduate, you want them to be ready for college. Like that, I've heard that so many times from all the teachers. We're preparing you for college. We're preparing you for college. And like I definitely have felt that like through the courses we've taken, like your classes and stuff like that. But like, what would you say to like the kids who are maybe in like stay in honors classes or stay in academic classes through all of high school? Because if you stay in a class like that, it's going to be a very rude awakening when you switch over to college. And it's hard to dictate between if the student like just can't do it or if they're not trying or like how would you,
Well, hopefully they've built the skills that they need.
Right.
So that's what I would hope that we are graduating students that have the skills. So even if they haven't been exposed to all the content, have they identified what is the best way for them to study?
Right.
Do they know how to write well?
Mm-hmm.
Do they know their core math
Mm-hmm.
skills? Have they explored if they enjoy the arts or music? So do they have an understanding of kind of some strengths and then have those skills that they can then be successful?
Yeah.
But I think too, it's some family things like what about being honest and
Values.
dependable and responsible and being on time, and I think those are so much what will lead to success. And I think indirectly, hopefully, we model that and through our school rules stress that.
Yeah.
But so much of that is hopefully parent.
Yeah. Kind of like a two-sided coin, I guess. Like you have the teacher who has to do things in school, but you need the parents to help at home.
And we are all on the same team.
Yeah.
But sometimes
no.
that's in conflict.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like, well, of course, you probably feel like sometimes parents don't help you?
Sometimes. And again, it's not an adversarial. Never.
It's just conflicted
At
opinions.
least as far as now, I have through being a parent of kids, like definitely seen where some parents come from then. Because I would always think like, why doesn't this parent know that, oh my gosh, I will just do everything for this child? Or do they not realize that what they're asking me to do is not strengthening their child, is enabling, and I think that's really hard.
Yeah.
But I understand because just like in any profession, there's strong and there's weak, and my kids have had some weak that are very hard to deal with being in the profession. But yeah, that's a reality of the job.
Yeah.
Is that, you're not just Tanish, you have this family around you.
Yeah. Same with Josh.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the unique thing about teaching, I feel like, is because, I definitely have seen, at least through you, like you treat your students like they're your kids. And like, a lot of teachers do that too as well. But like, it's kind of weird because like, whenever I'm at school, I'm just like, okay, this is like school. This is just what I do. But like you having like 4 class periods a day of like all these kids, like it must be really hard for you to like get to know all of them personally. And like to care like that much about each one of them, to like care that they do well in your class and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, I guess it's a weird thought because like we always we just go home. We have our own families at home, but like you have like your two families basically.
I know. I remember when my youngest was like, I don't know, 7 or 8. And I don't know. When I talk about you guys, sometimes I'll just say like my kids. And I remember Abram saying like, Mom, what kids are you talking about? Like us or your students? You know, and I thought, I like, you're my kids.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Yeah.
Do you find it hard to learn everybody's name at the beginning of the school year?
No.
No?
Not first.
You must have like hundreds of kids
though.
Oh,
So you know what's hard?
Yeah.
Is sometimes like to hang on to names of students that you've had
oh.
like 2 and 3 and then more than you.
That's
But I tell you what,
before.
you always I always
That
remember a
happened to me.
face. I remember
Yeah.
the face. So if
Yeah.
I see the face, you know, so sometimes my husband works at St. Clair Hospital, so he'll say like, "Oh, I took care of this patient and you had their granddaughter." I was like, "Oh my gosh!" But if I saw her face, you know, so yeah,
Yeah.
but no. And I try to learn first names definitely first
Yeah.
because too, so many of you have brothers and sisters,
Mhm.
and I definitely want you to know that I'm learning you for you.
Yeah.
You know, and so
Yeah.
that's always my priority. So it takes me a little while to like, okay, so what's the last name? That's so silly, but I
Yeah.
try to first get
Yeah.
But no, I think, but I'm okay at memorizing. So
For your own kids, I'd say then.
Yeah.
Like I work with your son sometimes whenever he's back from college, and like I've seen him, like the stuff that he does is like amazing, and like he's doing like the coding and stuff for the website at the company we work for, and like is that something that you like kind of did you introduce him to it, or did he introduce you to it and you like helped him with it, or like was there any help from you at all with his career path, I guess?
well, my poor kids, I always say like, oh, they have a chemistry teacher for a mom. So like from they were young, like the first read was baking soda and vinegar, and we
Mhm.
made like so they can't help, and I always talk about the science of things, and even sometimes my kids are like, Mom, do we have to use the correct words? Can't we just use slang or whatever? But and so they've just grown up that we're always doing science and talking science, and
Yeah.
But my oldest, he would always take things apart, build with Legos, put back. So I always thought engineering,
Yeah.
and so as soon as there were like summer camps available, I would get him plugged into that. And he did a robotics camp at CMU, and I think that was his first like coding experience. And then he found Scratch,
Mhm.
and then not that that's really coding, but kind of the
Yeah,
pieces
it's
of
like that
coding.
block programming.
So I
yeah.
think he started. So he really like found that, and he is just a self-driven, but he really enjoys learning.
Yeah.
And so I hope we've provided the avenues and the opportunities, but he is definitely self-taught and just really loves learning.
Well, I mean, that's not something that kids develop themselves most of the time. I mean, that's definitely something that parents instill in their kids.
Curiosity.
Yeah, curiosity. I think that's one of the most important things, honestly. Like the ability, not only the ability, but the desire to learn
Mhm.
new things.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably one of, if not the most beneficial skill you can
Yeah.
have, or trait you can have, as especially going out into college and into like a world where you're on your own,
Mm-hmm.
and having wanting to learn all that stuff. Like there's more than just stuff you learn in school. There's more just science classes and math classes. Like there's combinations of them, and then there's stuff that you don't even get taught in school.
Right.
There's adulting. There's more than just like a
I
job.
know.
Like there's how to like actually
I
live
know.
on your own, which
Yeah.
is yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And if
Yeah.
I can give my husband credit, he's just an extraordinary husband and father. But I think what he's really modeled for my kids, he would never say that he's like a good handyman. But let me tell you, when he gets an idea, like installing French doors in our house, or building a new deck, or laying a new patio, or like building me a new chicken coop for my he just gets the idea, he does all the research, and he does it right, and tries and makes mistakes, but doesn't get discouraged and just tries something. So I think he involves the kids. So I think he's done such a beautiful job, definitely showing that trial and error and what you learn from that, and not being discouraged by that.
Yeah.
So I think that's also talking about like the stress in kids.
Yeah.
I don't know, is it this like strive for perfection that we get so defeated when things fail, which that is our world.
That's another good question. Do you have any ways in the classroom that you try to introduce kids to failure?
Oh, yeah. Especially in
Yeah.
honors. Like, especially a lot of like the inquiry stuff. Like I think just the lab that we did a couple weeks ago where kids have to collect a sample of butane and then through their calculations prove molar volume, 22.41 liters per mole. And I not on purpose, but definitely I need to give the most instructions on how to get the butane out of the can. Because they're so easily broken, everything else. So, like, talk about that a lot. Like, I don't know, in 5 minutes of direction, probably 3 are about that. And then I say, okay, you need to talk to your lab partner about what you need. You have a goal. Be safe. I'll be here to answer your questions. And they're so quick to get that sample of gas that they all forget. And it takes them a while, but wait, but I need the mass of the gas. How do I get the mass of the gas? And so we send them into lab knowing that they're going to. And then it's just so interesting when they have that eureka moment. Yeah. And some get so mad at me. Like, you didn't tell me. And some are like, oh, why didn't I think of that? Yeah. Okay. And some like, oh, but how do, and so definitely with the inquiry. Yeah. For sure. And then that's okay. And then whenever we then recap from the lab, I'll definitely say that, that was part of the reason for that. It's okay. That's how we learn, so.
I think I made that mistake because I think I used up the gas and then I was like, wait, I don't have the mass. So I had to do the entire experiment over again. Yeah. Because you have to measure the can first, then you have to use it, and then you have to read it. Yeah. I made that mistake. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Do you ever have days where you go home and you're like, I wish I could have done that better?
Every day.
Every day?
Every day.
Is it just like a self-improvement? It never feels exhausting, right?
What?
Like that strive to be better?
Sometimes I think, maybe I need to give myself a break a little bit. Yeah. Sometimes I'll think like, okay, that was okay. All right. Yeah. Or, oh, that really worked. I need to write that down so I remember for next year, Yeah. But no, it's always, because kids keep changing a little bit. So, but no, I'm not and that's okay. Pull a worksheet out from 20 years ago. Sometimes that still works and everything else, but no, just, no. But I think that's just my personality. My silly personality.
Because chemistry is an always changing field. How do you keep up with the changes that come along with it?
Just try to read as much as I can. Yeah. I just try to read.
I feel like that's a key to being a successful person, to read.
I just try to read as much as I can. Read. Yeah. I tell you what, Popular Science has become my very favorite magazine. Really? Oh my gosh. And then I have like my certain websites that I know are trusted, solid material. Mm-hmm. Just try to read. Talk with fellow chemists and teachers that, are good resources.
I mean, one of the things that I remember, like, having you as a teacher was, like, the enthusiasm. Like, whenever you taught, like, you were up there on the board, like, scratching away with the chalk and, like, just going crazy on the equations and stuff. And, like, sitting there and being like, I don't know how you have that much energy to be able to do that. Because I'm, like, sitting there, like, falling asleep on the desk. And I'm like, come on, listen. Like, it's hard sometimes. I don't know, like, how you do that. It's crazy. Is that, like, just, like, your personality, or is it, like, you just love chemistry that much that it wakes you up and it gets you excited about it, or is it the kids, or what is it?
I think a combination of everything.
All of it, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, I love my subject. Yeah. And I think I don't know, take seriously the responsibility that I have to get you to hopefully enjoy learning or to find, get the challenge of it. But also the interaction with you guys. Yeah. And then I think my personality, my quirky personality. Yeah.
How about this? What do you see most hold students back from reaching their maximum potential?
I don't know. I wish, and not to degrade sports in any way, shape, or form. This is not it, because I think involvement in outside activities, involvement in is part of making you a whole person. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But when I was in high school, you did your one season sport, and then the next season, and you took off, or you did another sport, or you did. But now, to be competitive, you have to do that sport all year round, and there's club, and there's traveling, and there's this, and then there's 3 and 4 and 5 hour practices, and there's traveling to the West Coast, and like, oh my gosh, which is absolutely fine, absolutely, but how do we get kids as excited or as invested? Which I know you come to school and you spend the whole day, but but there's a different sometimes investment in those 2 or 3 hours that you give your coach.
Yeah.
You know, and just I don't know, is it like a mindset? Is it
Might be that hands-on thing we talked about. Because if we play football, you know, I actually get to throw a ball.
yeah?
And there's like a goal.
Okay.
But when I come to school, it's really abstract. I
Okay.
learned this topic on this day, but what does it have to do with the rest of the things that I have to do? Like, I know I'm not going to come back in like a couple weeks and have to do this again, unless it's like on a final. You know what I mean? There's this.
No.
It's kind of like a plot hole.
I think like to that point, like you're saying, like playing football, like you practice and then you play like a competitive game against another school or whatever, and you win or you lose. It's black or white.
Yeah.
And if you win, you say, okay, here's what we did well. This is why we won. And if you lose, then okay, what happened? Why did we do that? And I think it's hard sometimes, even for like literally any student. Like whenever you take a test and you're like, oh, I knew that stuff, and it comes back and you didn't get a good grade, or maybe you think you didn't do well on it and you didn't do well on it when it comes back, and it's hard for some students, I think, to take that and say, okay, let's look at this test. What did I do wrong, and how do I improve that? Because then it's always right from that next test, right into the next thing, and there's no time to like kind of go back and say, how do you fix what you did wrong, and like how do you learn from that? Because every teacher has a different style for their tests, and like that's why every time I take a class, I'm like, first test, I don't expect anything, because you have to learn how the teacher tests, because that's the most important thing. Yeah, so you have to, from there you learn what to study, like what kind of questions do they ask? Is it more like vocab? Is it more application? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, sports, it's just like, it's right there. Like, it's right in front of you, because you know what you did, and you know in that moment what you were thinking and what you were, trying to achieve. And I feel like it's hard to kind of get that back on a piece of paper sometimes.
Gee, that's 100%.
No.
Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I have no idea how you would even fix that, but... Yeah.
Like, you need like a reassess period.
Yeah, something like that. Because, you don't want to move on to the next subject without knowing, at least decently well the one before it, because it all builds, especially in chemistry, where the first chapter is still applicable in the last chapter of
you have to know
class.
your base. Yeah.
No, that's really interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. And
No, that's excellent to consider.
Yeah. And I also think it's also like a mindset thing. Like, if I fail the first couple times, right, and I can't really get back up on my feet again, if I just keep failing and failing, it's hard for me to have the motivation to get up and try again. At some point I'm just going to give up. And, it's, I don't know how you can fix that, because you can't give your attention to everybody equally.
Right.
Yeah.
Some
kids are just going to naturally, not because you did it or anything.
Right.
Just naturally kind of just get left out.
Yeah.
So it's a hard balance. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, even with sports, like there's kids who are equally as passionate about, academic stuff, like forensics and robotics, stuff like that. But it's like, when you think about why they do that, or why people get so fired up about it, it's because, they care about it in most cases. But in some cases, I think it's because of, we're told that you need to be the best in everything, and you need to make yourself stand out for college, and you need to, do well in all your classes, which I think is, sometimes bad, because then you get kids who are every year just more and more competitive and taking on more and more and more on themselves, and it's a lot to do as a teenager.
Yes.
Like it's a lot to like be juggling school and outside activities and home life, and like trying to hang out with your friends and be a kid.
Absolutely.
Because you're so concerned about your future, and you think it's such a like heavy weight on you the whole time.
Right.
I feel like because these are our formative years.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to take into adulthood, because you start seeing the world, I guess, in those terms.
Sure.
Like, you have to be the best in whatever you do.
Yeah.
You have to be the greatest.
I mean, it's good motivation, but it's not always true, because there's always going to be someone better than you.
Like, if you're constantly stressed now,
right,
you're going to be constantly stressed then. You're always going to be looking for something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no, we need to fix that.
Yeah.
That's not a way to live.
No. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why it's good sometimes for kids to do extracurriculars like that, because for some of them it's an outlet. It's a way to
absolutely.
Kind of be like, okay, this 2-hour practice, or this robotics meeting or whatever, like I can kind of forget about school and focus on something that I enjoy doing and I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even better if we could figure out a way to like integrate it all.
Yeah, the both.
Make it like a circle. Like what I
Right.
learn here applies in school. What I
Right.
learn in school applies up here.
Yeah, that's why that applied engineering class
Yeah.
is great. I'm sure have you
Yeah.
heard of that? Yeah, that's a good one. It's a class where we did us specifically. I guess we worked with a company called EA Fab from the area. So companies will come to the school and to the class and say, we have this problem, fix it, and the students just kind of let off on their own for an entire class period. And stuff outside of school too, to just kind of come up with ideas and go through like the process of how you do something like that, because that happens in any field. Like problem solving is universal, no matter what you do. Like that's always going to be a part of it. So we did like a mini
pipe inspection
robot. So like we got to use skills that we learned in other classes in in our own personal lives, in our extracurricular activity, and kind of bring it all into one thing and say, look, this is what we made with our own skills, over what we've learned through our time at high school and stuff. And I think it's a really great way to see like stuff pay off. Like I'm putting in all this work and putting in all this time to learn, and then you finally have a finished product where you can point at it and say like, look, I did this.
Yeah, because the whole process was cool because we got to collaborate with. We also had another friend, Tay Harmon, with us. We were all on a team together. So we all got to use our skills. Like, we all had different strengths and different weaknesses, but we were a team, so it worked.
Yeah.
But it was cool to finally present, like, what we did, and it was, like, the culmination of all these different skills that we pulled from all these different areas. It was a fun time.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we were talking about that earlier with, the actual practical application of classes.
Yeah.
So if there was something like that
experience
for, a lab period or something where you have a class project with a local business or something like that, because they're always looking for stuff like that, and you never know where the next big thing is going to come from. Like there's been throughout history, there's been people who are accidentally coming upon stuff, and if that's a learning experience for you in school, it's even better. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, I mean, do you have any topics you wanted to address or anything?
Well, first, I'm so honored that you asked me. Just so honored, and I love talking with you guys. So this just is a win-win for me for sure. Any ideas that you guys have, definitely, and feedback. So believe me, I am just taking all this in that you're saying.
Yeah.
Because again, not to diss sports but like you see the fire on the football field. Well, then how do I get that fire, or just a little bit of it?
Yeah.
Especially, I'm not sure, this year has been just extraordinarily hard. I'm not sure if it's the group of kids, but where the joy is that I can like see understanding or concern in your eyes of my students. I'm having trouble reading it. And again, I'm not sure, is that a phone? Is that this is the crew that I have that just doesn't care to learn.
You like apathy,
like
apathetic feeling.
Like, how do I get that?
Yeah.
And so any feedback, is so welcome.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'm an experimenter, so I'll definitely try.
Well, it's hard to do your job if you don't know, what the heck you're doing. Like if
right.
Like I know you want to make sure like that what you're teaching, that your audience, your students respond to it 100%. So you don't want to do it like halfway. You want to do it 100%. So,
right. And I understand too. I look at it from the adult's perspective.
Yeah.
And I can't say like, well, when I was a student, because that was so long ago. And so to hear from you guys, and I think that would be a great improvement to school too, is to have more feedback from our clientele, because this is why we do everything.
Yeah.
So the suggestion box, I've just been, anytime one of my students moans and groans, hey, there's that suggestion box. Why don't you put, someone else? I know. Well, someone said the other day, isn't there like a number of minimum assignments a teacher? Like, isn't that like the teacher rule? No. Suggestion box.
So this is kind of a twofold question. We kind of addressed it before, but how, like, I don't know if you have any specifics, like what can we do to prepare students for like the real world? Like we kind of touched on it. We can give them like practical experiences where they use their knowledge. Because I don't know. I feel like learning's good, problem solving's good. Like these skills are good.
I don't know. I've just felt some interactions with students I've just like had in the hallway have been like, we need to get better at like social and just as far as like, if you want to make a recommendation, if you're having a conversation with like, I don't know, an authority figure, you probably should start with something nice. Then bring in the like leading with the criticism. So it's like, I don't know, just like, you know, or eye contact or, you know, so I feel like sometimes that, and again, is it the phone thing or is that just, I don't know. But I don't know.
I mean, that's...
But I think that too is like shaking hands because you'll want to know your professor. You want to have your boss know you and your colleagues know you. And, you know, but I think also just the experience with failure and just that, I don't know, that how do we increase like grit? That
resilience. Yeah.
I
mean, I think part of the reason why kids are, like you're saying, like quick to, you know, kind of blame the teacher and stuff for like, you know, something that, you know, if they're having trouble in the class or whatever and kind of blame it on the teacher, it's because like I think it's hard for kids to see how the teacher can like care about them and how like this teacher doesn't care if I do well or not in this class. And like while that may not be true in college, like you're kind of on your own. Like high school is very much not at all like that. Like, you know, there's definitely a lot of teachers in the school who have, you know, been able to talk to, and you know, you can tell, especially you, like that they actually care about how you're doing in the classes and stuff. And I think that it's hard for kids to see that sometimes. So they kind of have a, you know, a mean demeanor, I guess, like with the way that they approach teachers with problems and stuff.
Yeah. I feel personally like I don't know if academic classes do a real good job, really. Like, it's nothing with the teachers. It's just like the way the class is. I've sat in on a few, but I just feel like they don't do a wholesome job with giving us the skills, giving the students the skills that they need to be successful in life, like problem solving, like these basic skills that you need to have.
Right.
And I don't know if there's any room to improve them. Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, you don't want to put them into something they can't handle either. You don't want to, you know, shove an academic student into an AP class.
Right.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Because you're going back to that resilience point. If when you come up on that obstacle, if your first instinct is to give up or look for something else to help you, or to like delegate or something.
Right.
You know, like you're going to shoot in basketball, you don't trust yourself and you pass it.
Right.
You can't do that in real life. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that's a very good analogy. Very good analogy. I don't know. Visiting other schools and so on, I always ask, like, how many levels of first year chemistry do you have? Many schools have at least 4. So they have like, you know, the lowest level of maybe students who aren't very strong in math. So it's definitely more theoretical.
Yeah.
And then they have kind of another step up and another step up. And then they have their honors. So not, you know, tracking kids, but I think, can we do a better job placing kids?
Yeah. I never thought of like dividing it up more, because I thought 3 is kind of a lot.
Yeah.
Right.
But I never thought we could actually divide it. Because I think we have 4 here. We have like the Keystone level, if I'm not wrong. Keystone, academic honors.
It's really not a level.
It's not.
That's chosen. And we only have the Keystone for kids who have not passed the Keystone test.
I see.
Then they take that class that's geared to get them exposed to the question so they can pass.
So it's not
test.
really
No.
Okay.
It's more just test prep then.
It's like
test
remediation.
prep.
Yeah, more test prep, exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think so the talent level is just so spread, and work ethic level and that kind of thing. And so how you try to teach to like the upper, but I think when you have a class with low ability, that's just really, really hard. So I think that is something definitely to maybe pursue. And again, not to like, I think it's okay. Like, I'm okay. I cannot sing for the life of me. I'm okay. That's just not my gift. You know, I can't draw for anything. That's okay. So I know I won't be in advanced art. Like, it's okay that, but maybe I can definitely get better.
Yeah.
And so it's not that you're set in that forever and ever and ever, but I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, you want to bring the spread in a little bit. You want everyone to do well, and you don't want to leave anyone behind either, because that's not fair to them.
Yeah, so maybe that, I think that would be a good thing to.
Yeah.
You know, I think maybe more varieties and like electives within our different subjects might just appeal.
Yeah,
You know?
definitely. Yeah, definitely more electives better.
Yeah.
So if the spread is really big, like if you have a chemistry class where you have some really kids who have like a really good work ethic, really want to be good at chemistry, but you have some kids who are just, as you said, maybe just apathetic, maybe just don't see chemistry in the same way that you do. Like, what do you do like in that scenario?
That's really hard. But I feel like, for example, in honors, there's a certain level of rigor that to respect the honors. So I think there's a bit more flexibility. And two, I feel as an honors teacher, I'm responsible for that rigor so that you're prepared for AP. You know, and so because I definitely have had and do have, you know, so you just try to teach to that upper, but then offer the support, you know, to say, you know, how about coming 5 minutes before tomorrow? Or how about, you know, or, okay, we really need to meet the last 10 minutes of your lunch or during lab or whatever else. So that's how I try to, it's hard. It's hard when like it's those students that are asking questions and you want to answer them, but yet there's the students that, oh my gosh, you can't rearrange an equation, like you know. So that is hard to. So then you just try to orchestrate it as best as you can.
Yeah, you can only do so much. I think.
Yeah,
that's one thing I have a hard time understanding is that you can only do so much. You know, I feel like in my head everything can be perfect and everything could be ideal, but like,
oh please,
it
just
can't.
You can't, especially going into college. You know, there's only a certain amount of things you can do in the day.
Yeah.
You know, someone gave me good advice. You like say like, okay, so what's on my plate today? Like that's just, but my brain, like I once said, okay, I'm just going to I always write down a list. So I said like, oh my gosh, I can never get to even halfway through my list. Like, oh my gosh, what a failure. And I said, well, I'm just being unrealistic. So I'll go to a Post-it note. But then I found that I was writing on the front and the back. Okay, I'll just write on the front. But then I was writing smaller. So it's like, Andrea, like, it is okay. And I still to this day, like Sunday night, I'm always so frustrated with myself. Like going to the weekend, I was going to get this done and this done and this done. And all of a sudden, I go back to school. Like what? But it's realizing, but I did get that done and that done.
Yeah.
And that was okay that I watched that show.
Yeah.
So it's learning that and what you can be that are in your life that is good enough.
Yeah.
That is good enough. And I think you really learn that when you're a parent. Like, it's okay that I don't scrub my kitchen floor every week. Every 2 weeks. I wipe it down, but like scrub it. But I used to. Anyway. You know. And I used to it just
you can't do everything.
Yeah.
But that's a good point, like you're saying, like you can point to the things you did do, and I think that's sometimes hard to do when you're caught up in it. Yeah.
Very, very hard. And I too, as a teacher, a student said to me the other day, like, Miss Gearhart, every time you say the AP chemistry exam, I get so stressed. Like how how do we get that better balance?
Yeah.
And it's going into that test so that it reflects your strength, not I have to get it perfect. How do we just do a better job at making you know it's not about being the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you honor these gifts that you've been given and you love other people and treat them with kindness and respect and carry yourself with character and hopefully make an impact.
One thing I was thinking as a teacher, this probably happened if you have a student who's failing.
Mm-hmm.
What's the mindset here? What do you do? What do you hope to do?
Sure. Well, like to just get their attention as soon as I notice, like, oh my goodness, that test or that assessment, like what was going on there? Do you feel like you didn't understand the material? Was there an outside issue? Was there, and so definitely I think an immediate communication with the student.
Yeah.
But it's often when you don't get to grab that student at the end of the class or you write please see me after class and then they don't or, and so you just try to make that connection.
Yeah.
And then I was sometimes worried like, oh, maybe it's an outside issue. So should I reach out to the parent? Well, we're on the same team. So let's reach out,
right.
And so it's like a multi-step, but I want to make that connection first. Like I'm concerned. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Where can we make it better?
So it seems like when you do establish a connection with a student, like I guess if you know their name or you know them better than just the student in your class, they tend to do better in your class.
Not always.
Not
but
always.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, not always. But
Not
you
always.
you try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Mrs. Gearhart, I want to thank you
Thank
so
you so
much for
much.
doing this.
Thank you again. So honored.
For being our inaugural guest.
Oh my gosh. And I've just enjoyed the
It's
conversation
really awesome.
so much.
Hopefully we can get more teachers to take in this conversation. We really, I love the fact that you came here.
Oh my goodness, thank you very
Yeah.
much. And thank you for continuing to teach me. I
Well,
appreciate it.
well, I don't know the math. 180 days, 40 minutes,
Yeah.
plus lab days.
I know.
That's so much more
It's a lot
time
of
that you
time.
spent teaching us.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but I think it's good to have this kind of talk because it's not often that you get to have that kind of thing with your teacher and really figure out who they are and what they care about.
Yeah, I think just reflecting with like people you've spent a long time with, I think that's a good thing.
Yep.
I really enjoy doing that actually. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you guys very much. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course.
Thank you.